Hi, my name is Danish. I'm from Tindak Malaysia, and today we will be doing a video on how to use the electoral redistricting app, or ERA in short. We will use that term more frequently after this, for the purpose of building fair constituencies for one part of Sarawak. Once you signed up in the ERA profile, you will be taken up to this particular page. What you need to do is go down and see what is available. So you see your name, you see some of the details, but in your instance you don't have anything for your data because most likely you have not done anything. If you have done some work like me, you will see some things like appearing here. Okay, now the next thing is we go to the districting workshop. There's videos on how to use all the data and whatnot, and then we choose let's create. In this instance we will opt for the online version, and I will pause at this point because now I would like to show you in another screen. In the Tindak Malaysia GitHub, we have particular folders called Sarawak underscore 2022 example. I would like you to visit this particular folder. And in this particular folder, there are three files. Samaran underscore DM under 2022 updated for ERA. This DM refers to the Daerah Mundi, which is a subset of the Dun, and Dun is a subset of Parliament. Then you have the Senarai Daerah Sarawak Bilangan Pundi 2022 CSV that is showing the number of voters assigned to the various districts of Sarawak. Let me just open it up for you to see. It's around 45 districts, and we estimated the total number of voters as of G15 allocated for various districts, administrative districts. Okay. And then we have one file called Sarawak underscore Daerah 2022 under corrected zip. Okay. For the purpose of today's work, we will not touch these two files. We will just focus on the Samaran underscore DM underscore 2022 updated for ERA. My apologies. We will later will incorporate the Sarawak Daerah 2022 corrected zip. Okay. Now let's get back to ERA. I just need to make sure that I'm sharing the screen correctly. So in this instance, you will see there's projects, knowledge hub, and publisher data. So I would like you to go to projects. Okay. And in this instance, you would have actually nothing for the moment. Most likely, you might have just a default. But in this instance, I have been doing a lot of projects using the ERA app. So you will see there's a big list of it. Okay. Now the thing I want to show you is not something you need to follow when during this lesson. Okay. Let me just open up this particular project. Okay. This is an example of ERA being used for the purpose of allocating the number of constituencies to the various districts. And in this case, we group the districts into bahagians for Sarawak. So what we did in this particular project, and this is to give you a taste of what ERA is capable of doing, is we are doing this thing called apportionment or allocation in simpler terms. So in the case of Sarawak right now, they have 99 Dun seats and 31 parliamentary seats. Now the question is, how do you distribute the 99 Dun seats? So this is where we incorporated the population data and the district boundaries of Sarawak, bring them together using ERA, and we got the total population. Population here refers to the voter count, right? And we have established also what we call an average. Okay. So if you notice here, we estimate in G15 the population voter count for Sarawak is close to 2 million. But then you have 99 Dun seats. Yes, they use the word parliament, but for this purpose, we treat it as the Dun seats. The quarter divider refers to the average. Ideally, all constituencies should have an electorate size of 19,627 voters. Okay, but the reality is you're not going to hit that number. So hence, you need to give some leeway. So what is an acceptable leeway? There's what talk about deviation. So we in Tindak Malaysia propose for Sarawak, if where possible, is to do plus or minus 20%. Okay, some political parties have mentioned they want to do plus of 15%. That would be great if you can do it for Sarawak. But let's say for Sarawak, because we have geographical constraints, that is referring to the vast spaces that impacts the infrastructure development, then we may need to look at giving a bit more leeway. So in this work, we have established that the number of districts that my apologies, electoral district here refers not per se the constituency. It's actually the proposed grouping. And I use a grouping of the Bahagians in Sarawak. So in the Bahagians of Sarawak, there is around a dozen or so, if I'm not mistaken. I have counted the total number of voters by every district, which is a subset of the Bahagian. And this is where you notice for Bahagian Betong, we have approximately 5 dunes. You can create 5 dunes, but it has to be spread among the 3 dairas administrative districts. But our focus today is Bahagian Samarahan. Okay, let me just scroll this down for you. Bahagian Samarahan, we are saying that in Daerah Subuya, it has enough electors to fit in one constituency. 0.81 means pretty much is within the plus or minus 20%. Daerah Samarahan has 2.67. That means it has capacity to accommodate 2 dunes plus another half dune. And this half dune needs to merge up with the areas probably in Asajaya. Okay, because Asajaya also have more voters required for 1 dune. Then you have districts like Daerah Sumunjan and Daerah Gedong. These two, right? 0.53 and 0.46. Each of these districts do not have enough voters to form one constituency. Okay. If you strictly follow the district boundaries, unfortunately speaking, you will end up creating a situation called malapportionment, where some constituencies have just too little voters. So for Samarahan division, we have estimated there will be 6 dunes that you can put up with. Now the question is, how do I delineate the 6 dunes? What I've done just now is just apportioning the 6 dunes among the 5 districts. Now, from that, we need to figure out how the boundaries will look like in relation to the realities of the ground, or in relation to the district boundaries, how the boundaries will look like for the constituencies. Okay. Now you notice this thing called district magnitude. It means that in every given district, how many constituencies am I allowed to put up? Okay. For the purposes of districts like this, we would say every district area must receive some sort of representation, meaning one, at least one. But for the maximum, we will let the population numbers decide. We are not going to cap to Daerah Samarahan 2. I don't think so that is appropriate. We just give the maximum amount. For this instance, I just put 99 to give us flexibility. What I've explained to you is how do you apportion constituencies for one Bahagian or Sarawak. Let's go through the projects. So in this thing, we call create my project. Click on this. My apologies, we should be Samarahan 6 Dunes 2022. Okay, along that name. The reason I'm writing in this manner is you know that we are creating constituencies specifically for 6 dunes within the Samarahan division using 2022 data. So you create my project. Where does it appear? It appears at the bottom. Okay, next. So everything is empty, right? The first thing is we do a load shapefile. Okay, load shapefile. We choose the file, that the zip file that is the Samarahan underscore DM underscore 2022 updated for error. This made it very clear. It must be a zip shapefile. So if you download as a shapefile as a zip format, just keep it as it is. Then what is the area name? The area name will refer to the Nama Daramundi. It is an unprojected coordinate system, that is WGS85, and the format has to be polygon. So what you saw for the allocation of constituencies for the various districts, the shape of the district, the administrative district, is what you call a polygon. So you choose file. In this case, we do this. Press next. And this is very important for us to know whether things are going right or not. And sometimes if the error is slow, just please bear with it. Okay. It could be caused by your internet or other factors. Okay. Then we have area name. We use Nama underscore DM. This is all the name of the polling districts. By the way, these are the polling districts strictly found within the Samarahan division area. Okay, so I studied where all the polling districts located within the boundaries of this Bahagian. Okay, next, the population data. We choose Bilanga underscore P. It's very important. Bilanga underscore P has to be in integer. There's no decimals or whatnot. So these are all the numbers. Then in this case, we press finish. This is all the Daramundis found in the Samarahan division. But hence, I need to put one big caveat. There are certain polling districts whereby parts of it is actually found in the other district. Okay, I would like to put this out clearly if any of you want to scrutinize. For example, you notice this thing called Tanju, right? Tanju is pretty much a mangrove territory plus maybe a mix of plantation. That polling district very much resides in area terms, we'll find out later, area terms mostly to the Kuching district. But in terms of the actual location of the populations residing, which is very few, is more to the Samarahan division. Okay. Then we have the other one called Kuop. Okay. Kuop, in area wise, you're more to the Samarahan division, but probably in terms of the population wise, you're more to the Kuching side. Okay. So these are some of the nuances that I need you to be aware. But for the purposes of this work, we will include Tanju and Kuop in the analysis. Okay. Now what you can do is just click on Tanju, for example, and you see it called admin unit called Tanju, and population means the number is 150. Okay. That is the total number of voters. Okay, let's look at Kuop. It's 2,506. And let's look at Stakan. A lot of voters. Right? And you also realize that a lot of polling districts, some of them have very irregular shapes. Like the polling districts like Pangko and Godong, we can argue the irregular shape has to do with the river meander. So then it's not really of a concern of potential gerrymandering, right? But you have some districts like Simunjan having this sort of Y-shaped protrusion, or even like Stakan looking like in this shape. These are all the red flags of how the problematic polling districts. Okay, this is something you need to be aware of when we do this work. Let's look at the population data. In this instance, we do not bring any population data because it's already included in the shapefile. Okay, parliament seats. What do you mean by parliament seats? Is actually the total number of dunes. We have established that we can create 6 dunes. For every place, we just say every place needs some sort of representation. We put municipal as 1. But because this is a polling district, the polling district in one way or another has to be allocated to only one dune, not one polling district has 2 dunes. There are polling districts like Stakan which can accommodate 2 dunes because of sheer voter population size. But for the purpose of ERA, let's just stick it to 1 to 1. Let's save it. Okay. So what you see in this table is area ID, area name is the name of the polling districts, Then you have the population, which is the total number of voters for every polling district. And the quota is basically you take the whole population divided by the number of dunes, you get the average. Then it's basically 145 divided by the average, you get this quota. What it means, okay, let's try. What it means is that Sui itself cannot have enough population to form one dune. Okay, so let's look at the case of Stakan. So Stakan actually have enough population aging very close to one dune. So my apologies. So a bit of a correction, but so that's but there are going to be polling districts in other parts of Sarawak that's going to have a lot of voters, and that's where it will complicate the situation when we try to equalize. But that's just to give you an idea what this table is about. Now let's go to the standard deviation. Standard deviation means if I get the average, which is around 19,627 voters for every donor, and I know I cannot hit that value exactly. What is acceptable upper bound for constituency size in terms of electorate or voter count or the lower bound? For this purpose, we say 20. And you will notice one thing. There's this thing called ignore standard deviation value. If you ignore standard deviation value, that means you can exceed 20 plus or minus 20%. But in this instance, let's aim to create equal size constituencies in some division. Okay. Another thing is not to forget in the area workshop on the right hand side, you see the moon sign. Try to ensure that this display is using the sun option, not the moon option, because it looks very dark when you do this all over. Now, what is map overlays? Okay. Map overlays is basically is an additional layer that you put over it on the map for us to make sense how your polling districts relate to everything around it. For this purpose, we will include the Sarawak district files, which you can find it. Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen correctly. It's this one, is Sarawak underscore direct underscore 2022 corrected.zip. Okay. So this is the one you need to download as a zip file. Okay. So I'll let you guys download that first. Let me just change the sharing to Era. Let me see. So in this instance, they are given more flexibility in terms of the format. So in my case, I will just upload it. Let me just stop sharing for a brief moment. Let me share my screen. Then you need to put a title. So you say Sarawak Daerah. Make sure it's not similar terms with the original map file that you use for your polling districts. So you press load file. Take some time to load. Okay. And choose num. Okay, that's the label. That's the name of all the districts. So you press finish. Okay. You have added the layer, right? We added the district layer, but actually where it is found, you can look at this side. Okay, you got user defined overlays. You see these blue lines, okay? This line styling is from the era, so please live with that. You will notice these blue lines, how it corresponds or does most likely doesn't even correspond to the various district polling district boundaries. Okay, so this is something I need you to be aware. So if you click on this, it's for some reason it doesn't want to show the name. Let me see. So by right it should appear as a name, but just to give everyone an idea, because on your table I've also placed the map, the physical map of all these districts, because one of the challenges with ERA is if you turn on this layer of overlay, then you can't really do the redelineation because it's defaulting to clicking on this. Okay, but that's just to give you an idea what you can do. Let's switch this on. We have loaded the shapefile. We have set the number of constituencies. We have set the standard deviation. We've added the district file. Now let's talk about doing redelineation. So let's minimize this. Okay. So what you need to do, let's start from the westernmost. So click Stakan, select area. Then you instantly see a warning appeared. It says it does not comply with the minimum standard deviation rule. Meaning you can't form a dune just using Stakan only. So let's go to the next one. Pungkalan Kuo. Still not enough. And then we include Kuo. Okay. As mentioned before, Kuo probably in terms of geographic area is more tilted to Samarkand, but its population center is more tilted to the Kuching side. For this purpose, we are just going to use Samarkand uh, as the basis of including Kuo. Okay. So now you have created a dune of this size. But should we just stop here or should we proceed to include Merdang? Because one of the things is we also need to ensure the constituencies, where possible, should be regulation. Unfortunately speaking, for this area of Stakan, because you have this irregular polling district of Stakan, we're going to have an irregular shape. But that's a problem on the western side. Now let's fix on the eastern side and just make sure it's regular. So let's include Merdang in the process. So what we have found out is, if we include Merdang, we have too many voters. So what we do is deselect. Okay. If this work was done, let's say using 82 dunes, then we may have a bit of a different situation. We could have actually just included Merdang. Okay. So let's call this a Stakan. There is a dune Stakan, but it's now smaller shape. Okay, so we created the first dune. Okay, next, we will include Merdang, Malaban, Tuang, Batu Blat. Oh, I think we just exceeded it. Again, because Tuang has just too many voters. So this is where the challenge come into play, right? Is we have reached a situation whereby some of the polling districts population is so varied that it created a situation whereby inequality or exceeding the deviation limits comes into play, right? So, but is this advisable? You know what I'm doing. So in this instance, we have to make some judgment call. Okay. So what we have to do is going to deselect all these areas. And maybe, maybe what we have to do, unfortunately speaking, is whether we have to include quote in the analysis or not. Because if you've done Merdang, done Melaban, and even just adding Tuang, your constituency is effectively bigger than 20%, right? And we made it very clear you want to make it plus or minus 20%. You can say we cannot ignore. So what we have to do is, if there is a mistake, and I need to highlight this to you, the two, what you can do. If you want to deselect an area like quote, once it is saved, then the deselection will fail. Because why? Because you already saved the constituency. So if you ask me, this is one of the challenges using ERA. So maybe we just delete this and start again. Okay, let's start with Stakan. We include Pengkalan Kuok and maybe include Merdang and see what happens. Okay, we get this. So we call it as Stakan. Save electoral district. Okay. Next, we include Melaban, Tuang, Batu Blat, Tanjung. I think we can stop here. Let's see. Let's try and see whether it works out. So we call it as Tuang. Okay, next one. How should I move on to the next one? So this is where you need to turn on your overlays. You notice that Ampila is still within the same district as Samarahan. Same for Sui, all of these places. So this is where you have to use some judgment, because Ampila sits next to Pangkor. But if you do a Google map search of this area and turn on the satellite option, most likely these are plantation territory, right? By the same time, let's see, there is a road connectivity between these two areas. But as much as possible, let's try to keep the constituencies within the districts, the administrative district. Okay. And for this particular work, I wouldn't necessarily show all the constituencies because I just need everyone to be aware about what the tool is capable of. And in the process, also you learn the challenges to create constituencies that's equal sized, respect local ties, in light of the various polling district shapes and contents in it. So let's try to create the third one. Include Pila, include Sui, include Tambe, Tanjung Apung, Tambirat. Okay, maybe we can include Subi. And this is where there's a lot of polling districts that are smaller in population size. Tambir, select areas. Now, you hit 0.82. You could save it. That's one way to look at it. Or alternatively, you can explore whether if I included the others. Let's minimize this. So what do you think? If you are satisfied with this, then you need to choose a name for it. Okay. Now, naming a dun is actually quite challenging because one of the principles in naming the dun is probably is to choose a polling district which has the most amount of population. But if I were to name this place Empila, how does the people over here would feel about it? You know? Because Empila by default actually has the most number of voters. Okay. Then you save the electoral district. So we have already created 3 duns. And let's just have a quick look of this situation here. Empila is close to 1. Stakan is on the upper end. Tuam is at the lower end. The reason why I need to show you this 1.05, 1.15, and 0.96 is because if you create a lot of constituencies above the 100%, means 1 point something, 1.1, 1.2, then the subsequent constituencies, it has to be below 1. It's just simple mathematics if you go through this whole process. Okay. So if you have completed all of this, okay, and I will leave it to everyone here to decide how to proceed in forming the remaining constituencies, then you should able to produce a PDF map or PDF or PDF table. Okay. I will proceed to create my own, but you don't need to follow what I'm going to do. I'll leave it to each of you to figure out how do I create fair electoral boundaries respecting the local ties. I just realized that I have probably missed out one polling district next to Impila. So in this instance, if I want to include Bullion, okay, yes, geographically it's more, it's like on the other side of the river, but in terms administration wise, it's more tilted to the Samarhan division. So you need to understand all these peculiarities, right? The settlement is in the Samaran division. So if in the instance that you don't agree with the proposal, then you just press X. Then just recreate the whole dune. And this is how your dune shape looks like in terms of the relationship with all the administrative districts in blue in color. So we more or less respected the district boundaries, but where we had to violate is because of we want to equalize. Okay. If you're done, then you can press save PDF map, or the alternatively, you can do this thing called publish your data. Okay. So you will wonder what to do with COPE. Okay. So I think COPE, while geographically you're more in Samarahan division, but because your population is more towards the Kuching side, and we found out that if we include COPE, it makes it very difficult for us to do equalization for Samarahan. We had to exclude COPE from the analysis. Okay, it's not ideal, but well, this is the decision that we had to make in light of that circumstances. So let's go publish your data. And this is where you do need to print the save the PDF. I will be upfront about saving the PDF. Sometimes the tool will generate too many PDFs. Sometimes the tool will generate one PDF. I just need you to be mindful about it. And this is where you upload your PDF map or a couple of options, PDF map, your image into here, then fill up all the relevant details. Then you press upload data. Okay. So this is for in future, if I will talk to the people in ERA to once if there's some projects has been completed, it should be published via through this approach that we have taken from here. Okay, I think I'll stop sharing and I'll stop.